Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to the channel. I am going through a bit of a level up right now. And with that, I wanted to talk about some of the aspects of the level up that aren't so lovely. You know, I think we all want these up levels in our lives, and we strive for them and we want them so badly and we work so hard for them. And also, I think it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the level ups are kind of sunshine and rainbows, like this unstoppable, positive forwards momentum. And actually, I think what it can kind of feel like and what it's feeling like right now is like I'm being thrown up. You know, all the work that I've been doing is accumulating and creating this momentum for me. And also my body's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Are we really ready for this next level? And it's kind of trying to, self-sabotage me a little bit. It's trying to hold me back because it's afraid. We haven't been at this level before. We haven't worked at this level of demand. We haven't held this much responsibility and taken this much risk before. And my body, naturally, understandably, is trying to put the brakes on with that momentum pushing me forward. So I wanted to talk about just a small aspect of this today, aside from that very useful point that the up level doesn't feel good. And so be very careful when you have done everything right and everything's working and you've got that momentum forwards. And with that, even though it's everything you want, be very careful with your mind, your nervous system trying to sabotage you because it's understandably afraid. And the second point I wanted to bring to you guys today is specifically about managing the anxiety that can come with this wonderful situation, specifically the anxiety that interrupts your sleep. Because we know how important this is and we know how frustrating this can be when we're in one of those times where the demands are very high and we want to show up. And understandably with that, we have this anxiety. And annoyingly, the anxiety can then affect our rest and our sleep here in this case and make it harder for us to show up the way that we want to. It can create another handicap for us in this situation. So let me tell you how I successfully handled this recent experience of having a couple of nights of anxiety that was stopping me from sleeping that I quickly nipped in the bud. So then I was able to save all those precious resources for adapting myself to this next level. So let me drop you into this specific situation that, let's be honest, you probably know all too well anyway. So it is bedtime. You are lying in bed. In fact, it's a bit past bedtime because, stuff to do, extra things to do, extra demands. You've been trying to get all that extra work done. And with that, you're lying in bed, desperate, more desperate than ever to get some sleep. And instead, your heart is pounding, your chest is tight, your stomach is woozy, your head is full, your thoughts are racing so fast. You're having what feels like hundreds of thoughts at once, and you can't even grasp onto one specific thing that your mind is worrying about. And in this moment that you get awareness of how uncomfortable your body is, and you feel like you have no control at all because your mind is just all over the place, you get this urge to reach and grab your phone for a moment of distraction, a moment of relief, probably going straight to social media, something hopefully distracting or even perhaps positive, funny, enjoyable there to take you away from this experience of your body in that moment. Or maybe you're one more step advanced. You're like, hey, I've got some strategies here. Instead of just distracting myself and going on the social media scroll, I can employ some mindfulness and direct my mind to things other than my anxiety. I'm going to grab my phone and use a meditation to direct my mind in that way. Now, both of those options in that order pass through my mind. And here's the reason why I chose not to do either of them from my best self. While a meditation, a mindfulness practice, is a great tool for redirecting your mind and with that, de-escalating that fear anxiety response, the reason that that wasn't what I wanted to do in that moment was because that was ultimately another way of me escaping my emotional experience of anxiety. And the downside to that is I don't become more resilient in my anxiety experiences, right? And when I'm going through this up level, I know that my body's going to evoke more and more anxiety with more and more perceived uncertainty and more perceived risk. Anxiety is an experience that I'm going to keep having over this period that I want to be in. So instead of needing to escape my anxiety, I wanted to use this opportunity to do a rep of specifically not escaping my anxiety, of specifically allowing that anxiety to be in my body without it controlling me, without it being the thing that is all consuming, without it being the thing that demands all of my resources, without it being the thing that controls my actions and behaviors. But instead, I want to increase my ability to allow the emotion, to allow the anxiety to be in my body and remain in control of myself. And I'm not increasing that ability if I'm doing things that just distract my mind from the anxiety as a means to escape it. Just picture, for example, you're about to step up on stage for some kind of speaking event or step into an exam, and you had that high level of anxiety in your body. And what you'd practiced so far as a means to cope and not escalate the anxiety or not decompensate with the anxiety is to put on a meditation and distract your mind. That means that your mind now doesn't have the capacity to focus on the performance that you're trying to do, which in these high performance, high cognitive demand situations is very important to you and your outcomes, right? So instead of deploying distraction as your coping mechanism, I want you to be able to allow that anxiety to be in your body without needing it to go away. And I appreciate that probably sounds a little bit abstract to a lot of you. The only way that you can probably imagine it is having this awful, intolerable, all-consuming experience of discomfort in your body. But let me explain why allowing anxiety to be in your body is not that experience. It is not intolerable. That all-consuming, intolerable experience of anxiety that most of us appreciate is anxiety, is usually anxiety plus the resistance of the anxiety. It's the anxiety about the anxiety. It's the panic about the panic. It's having the anxiety and then making it a problem, making it mean that something's going wrong and making it mean that you need to fix this and make this anxiety go away. And that anxiety plus the judgment of it, the making it a problem, is what feels so intolerable. When instead you have anxiety plus non-resistance, i.e. anxiety plus acceptance, anxiety plus a sense of safety to feel the anxiety. This is just a set of very tolerable sensations in our body. So I'm lying in bed and I start to allow the anxiety to be in my body. My first thing here is noticing where I'm resisting the anxiety. And physically, I notice I'm contracting my shoulders, my arms in. I'm contracting at my hips. I'm contracting at all joints on some level in my body, as if I'm resisting against the emotion in my body itself. And so the first thing I notice as I start to allow that anxiety to be in my body is that tension starts to drop away. And then I can feel these sensations as I scan down. I can feel that heartbeat, right? I can feel that big, loud heartbeat that feels like it's moving my chest. I can feel the tightness in my chest and I just release back against it a little bit more. I can feel the swelling in my stomach and notice how, it's unpleasant, but it's not painful. It's not something I need to immediately fix. And I do the same with each part of my body where I can experience and feel the anxiety. And I just accept each part. That might involve thoughts like, I notice this sensation. This is happening. And then one of the most important parts about non-resistance is what I call this reappraisal step. Because I think what happens when we have these anxiety and stress emotions is our mind recognizes that our body is in that fight or flight mode, and it can easily make it mean. It can see that state of our body, and it can take this heuristic and think, well, if you're in a stress state, then there's some kind of threat here. And so the recognition that actually I am feeling this anxiety, I have this nervous system activation in my body right now, and also nothing is going wrong. It allows me to only accept and open up to that anxiety and all those uncomfortable sensations even more. Now, the point of this is not to make the anxiety go away, right? This isn't supposed to fix the emotion. This is specifically stopping resisting the emotion. And I cannot tell you, actually can't explain to you in words, I don't think it'll land, how impactful this is, because I really need you to go and experience this for yourself. We don't realize how big of a component of the intolerance, the feeling of needing to escape the emotion, is due to the resisting of the emotion and not the emotion itself. The best analogy that I've experienced elsewhere for this is when I came home from Queensland. For those of you guys who aren't Australians, that's the far north, hottest part of Australia, down to Tasmania, the furthest southmost point of Australia. I went from the gorgeous, hot, sweaty sun down to a windy storm where, like, had these little tiny droplets of rain, when they're so thin and the wind is kind of going almost horizontal. And I had my arms exposed and we were waiting for the taxi, and I could feel that cold on my skin with the wind and the tiny droplets of rain. And in that moment, I noticed myself again resisting. And in that moment, when I noticed myself resisting, it felt familiar to me, this experience of feeling emotions. And I noticed how uncomfortable this contracting was. And this resistance in my mind was of, this is a terrible time, this is terribly unlucky, this is very bad. And cognitively and physically, between those two things, that resistance was very uncomfortable. And I decided to trial something different, because this wasn't working particularly well for me anyway, right? So I released my body in the very same fashion. I reminded myself that I can totally tolerate being cold. Wind and water on my skin for a couple of minutes. Even if I was stuck here for half an hour, I could do that. And with that, my experience became so much more tolerable. My experience of the cold, the freezing cold, became so much more tolerable. Even though we accept this level of cold as an objectively bad thing, we can change our experience subjectively of it if we actually give ourselves a chance to do it. My experience of embracing the cold, not resisting the cold specifically, even though it probably made me colder, that contracting mechanism should be making me less cold. It should be reducing my surface area. And yet, the resistance experience was worse than being more cold. I would rather be more cold than be less cold plus resistance. Being more cold was more comfortable. And it's the same with these negative emotions. So enough talk about this. As I said, the only way that you are going to be able to see if this is something that can help you is by actually doing it. Not by just hearing me talk about it. Give yourself the opportunity to have a better experience of these negative emotions. These negative emotions are a normal part of life, and they will certainly be a big part of your life if you're in an up level period. So if you want to up level, you better develop a better relationship with your stress and your anxiety. Otherwise, you're just going to keep self-sabotaging yourself because you don't want to feel those emotions. If this video was useful for you, give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments if you are gonna try this. Set a timer, just bargain with yourself. Be like, okay, I'm gonna feel the emotion for just 30 seconds. That's it, no more. Then I can do whatever I want after that, just 30 seconds. Give yourself that and let me know if you do. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.